This video is brought to you by Surfshark. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they're providing to the entire upper echelon community. Okay, today I'm going to weigh in on the recent Unity game engine fiasco of sorts because A, a lot of people are asking me to do it, B, it hits close to home for me on a personal level, and C, I need that spicy content with a negative headline because the data's in people. You all tend to click things that are dramatic and attention-grabbing. I don't make the rules, I just play by them. All jokes aside, Unity, the biggest rival when it comes to Epic Games and its Unreal Engine, has recently decided to make some pricing changes. Sounds boring, right? Yeah, it should be. Normally it would be. But it's not because they somehow managed to effectively unite the entire gaming industry against them, wrestle the mantle of worst corporate entity away from Electronic Arts, go figure, and lose a bunch of their development customers all at the same time. Oh, and they lied, lost like $1 billion in market cap, seemingly tried to cover it all up while insiders sold their shares, and it really is just a giant mess of a situation. Let's discuss. Before doing a basic rundown, and this one has quite a few twists and turns, it's a decently interesting story, I want to explain why I care in the first place. For starters, I like games, obviously. Right now I'm playing this little gem called God of Weapons, it's in the background right now, and it was made, you guessed it, with Unity. It's a wonderful little game, and a business decision like the one we're discussing today hurts them pretty substantially. However, beyond that, one of the most well-received video types on the entire channel is the Indie Game Spotlight series. Some of those games have admittedly struggled to find their footing, others have gone on to be breakout success stories, but I mean this quite literally, those Indie Spotlights are the highest rated and most liked videos on the entire channel. Not the highest viewership, just the best reception. I love making them. I often interview developers, and in some rare cases, we go on to become friends. Helping people discover amazing games from passionate creative people is genuinely one of the most satisfying experiences I've ever had on all of YouTube. And yeah, this part should be obvious, but a lot of those games rely on the Unity engine. That right there makes me substantially personally invested. Sure, the decision isn't actually likely to bankrupt indie PC developers. That sentiment has been a little bit over-exaggerated, understandably so, but it certainly hurts them, massively betrays their trust, and demonstrates executive greed at the highest level and of the highest order. Today, I want to discuss that greed and weigh in on the discussion, so here we go. The actual terms of service changes can be summarized like this. Instead of a monthly subscription, which they used prior to all this, Unity will move to a hybrid payment model that charges based on every individual install of a game. That's an odd choice, especially considering the fact that the prior system worked perfectly fine, but it gets worse. Unity will now be charging developers for every installation beyond a certain threshold, that threshold being a product of whichever plan they pay for already. But instead of focusing on the details of how much the cost per installation will be and what their subscription model looked like before all this, I want to focus on the broader current picture. These are unsavory changes, to say the very least, but Unity has also gone a step further. With little more than a sort of ethereal promise, Unity has stated that their proprietary methods can detect whether or not a game has been pirated, thus effectively demanding that developers simply trust them when it comes to whether or not they will be charged for inauthentic installations. But when it comes to bad actors, there are now some very pressing, very real questions about whether or not repeated installation on a script, for example, can be used as a weapon to harm creatives. Still, those issues actually pale in comparison to what comes next, because far beyond a typical executive blunder or something like that, this appears to be a deliberate move by Unity to cover their tracks and, in my opinion, abuse the developer community. Alright, I'm going to be very direct here. Over the past few months, I cleaned house on sponsors, and some of them cleaned house on me. The goal was to get back to my roots, benefit the viewer, and also benefit the channel, which in my opinion worked pretty well. Surfshark is still around, Surfshark legitimately stands by this channel, and I stand by them as a result. Surfshark is a VPN, virtual private network, and VPNs protect you from a bunch of different things. Nothing is ever a fix-all solution, nor should it be claimed as such, but it certainly does protect against certain types of phishing attacks, malware, DNS tunneling, DDoS attacks in particular, a problem in video games, and also shields you to an extent from the inevitable and constant data harvesting as well as tracking from big tech companies, which is now basically everywhere. For those who care more about entertainment, Surfshark unlocks additional content on streaming websites, like Netflix for example. Just change your region and enjoy increased options in your video library. Surfshark can get around regional censorship, such as government restrictions on websites, which is good. Government restriction on what you can and can't see is also a growing problem, it seems. And Surfshark also offers encryption, IP protection, modification, and more. Surfshark operates completely separate infrastructure from its affiliated company NordVPN, for those that know why that matters, and also maintains a warrant canary, again, for those that know what that is and care about it. If you click the link down below, using promo code Echelon, you can take advantage of a branded special offer for the upper echelon community. Again, that's promo code Echelon with the link down below for a community-wide special offer. Big thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring the channel. Okay, try this on for size. Unity has now changed their terms of service, harming developers, but a few years ago, in 2019 to be precise, as per a blog post on their own website that's still active, we can see the following. Quote, retroactive TOS changes. When you obtain a version of Unity and don't upgrade your project, we think you should be able to stick to that version of the TOS. In practice, that is only possible if you have access to bug fixes. For this reason, we now allow users to continue to use the TOS for the same major year-based version number, including long-term stable LTS builds that you are using in your project. Moving forward, and this is the important part, we will host TOS changes on GitHub to give developers full transparency about what changes are happening and when. The link is, and there it is, end quote. That post in particular was in response to backlash that they received over TOS changes that the community felt were too restrictive. Interesting, right? Well, turns out that GitHub page has been taken down. Unity has effectively deleted the evidence by deleting the GitHub repo as they contradict their prior commitment of transparency. Actually, even though it's been taken down, we can see it quite plainly on this page here. Quote, Unity may update these Unity software additional terms at any time for any reason and without notice, and those updated terms will apply to the most recent current year version of the Unity software, provided that if the updated terms adversely impact your rights, you may elect to continue to use any current year versions of the Unity software according to the terms that applied just prior to the updated terms. The updated terms will then not apply to your use of those current year versions unless and until you update to a subsequent year version of the Unity software. End quote. Long-winded, I know, and yes, they make it abundantly clear and very obvious that they are legally permitted to change things how and when they choose to. Of course, the legalese is there. But that's plain text commitment right there on its face. Developers can use the prior terms and conditions if they want to. Flash forward to today, and no, they can't. Those promises no longer exist in the TOS, the GitHub repo has been pulled down, and Unity sits there, presumably happy with themselves in all this, as they demonstrate some of the most blatant industry greed I've ever seen. The thing is, we really, truly shouldn't be surprised. See, Unity has now clarified that developers won't be responsible for Game Pass installations or charity bundles. That bill will be served to the likes of Microsoft, supposedly. Good luck there. Somehow I doubt Microsoft is going to play ball here with this and pony up and pay. But focusing more on Unity itself as a company, we find something interesting. For starters, the only thing that's been happening for the past 3 years is aggressive insider selling of their own stock. Simple explanation, insider buy and sell activity can sometimes, in some cases, be used as an indication of future outlook. Example, this is the past 3 years of insider trade activity for Activision Blizzard, according to MarketBeat. What we see is mostly sell-side activity, yes, especially fourth quarter 2020, but there's also a couple million here and there of insiders actually buying the stock. In contrast, here's Unity. For the past 3 years, again, according to MarketBeat Analytics, there has been only insider sales. Hundreds of millions worth. Actually, just a few days before all this even kicked off initially, the CEO, John Riccitello, whatever, however you say that, and a company director, Robin Cisco, were offloading shares. Again, just a couple of days before all this. Robin Cisco opting to sell off nearly 2/3 of her entire position in the company. In a vacuum, maybe nothing, but knowing what we do now, it certainly raises an eyebrow. Still, when searching for total context, there's quite a bit more. CEO of Unity, John Riccitello, however you say that, again, don't really care, isn't some sort of unknown maverick of the industry. No. He's the former CEO of EA Games. And it turns out he has some very vocal opinions on monetization. Now, I could read the headlines for this and summarize it for everyone very quickly, but I think the actual audio itself serves the purpose far better. Here he is, over a decade ago, speaking to investors.
The second thing, and this is a point that I think might be lost on many, is a big and substantial portion of digital revenues are microtransactions. When you are 6 hours into playing Battlefield and you run out of ammo in your clip and we ask you for $1 to reload, you're really not very price sensitive at that point in time. And for what it's worth, the cogs on the clip really low. And so essentially what ends up happening, and the reason the play first, pay later model works so nicely, is the consumer gets engaged in a property. They might spend 10, 20, 30, 50 hours on the game. And then when they're deep into the game, they're well invested in it. We're not gouging, but we're charging. And at that point in time, the commitment can be pretty high. As a personal anecdote, I spent about $5,000 calendar year to date on doing just this thing, this type of thing on our products and others. I can readily attest to how well it works. But it's a great model, and I think it represents a substantially better future for the industry.
That right there is vile. Immersing players in a product, subverting their critical thinking skills, then preying on their moment-to-moment desire to finish an objective or just keep their character alive even, to milk as much money as possible from them while mental faculties are diminished, is evil. And that is the person at the helm of Unity right now. It's not just this even. He also famously spoke to Pocket Gamer in 2022, referring to developers who don't think this way, as in prioritizing monetization of their product to an extreme above all else, as fucking idiots, making it readily apparent that the motivation here is not quality or ethical consideration, it's profit above all things, greed of the highest order, as I said previously, and that motive is now once again displayed here with Unity as they double down on one of the worst decisions I have ever seen in the entire video game industry since I got involved with it. Crema Games, the developers of Temtem, Megacrit, the team behind Slay the Spire, which was an indie spotlight, by the way, on the channel, incredible game, highly recommended, and AgroCrab have all stated publicly that they will either cease using Unity in the future or even migrate existing projects right now, and that's just the ones I happen to scroll past on social media today. There's more. This right here is a pretty solid Reddit thread detailing high-profile industry responses, but the damage continues to mount behind the scenes even every passing hour. Unity has destroyed any semblance of trust that their community held in what I would call a death knell of their relative industry position. Like I said earlier, after chatting with a fair number of developers and friends affected by all this, the PC side isn't as broadly impacted. Indie games that use Unity will still be okay, I guess, despite these changes, unlikely to be bankrupted or destroyed as a result. But the mobile space, that's a whole separate ballgame. I don't necessarily care as much about the mobile space on a personal level. I've certainly dabbled in some mobile games here and there, even trying to be #1 in the world on certain titles for a time, but the basic reality is now sinking in that Unity has destroyed their community trust worse than ever before, while going down a road of maximized greed. I'm not even being hyperbolic here. Some developers, like those behind Cult of the Lamb, have stated that they will actually just flat out delete their game come January 1st unless the decision is completely reversed. Devolver Digital has indicated that they will now be using engine choice as a lever on whether or not to even work with potential projects, even Among Us publicly stating that they will delay features or port their game elsewhere. That is a very big deal. Bottom line, like I said, it's not even hyperbole. The fall of Unity is happening in real time as the company goes down a road so asinine, ridiculous, and obtuse, they have likely catapulted themselves to the top of the list when it comes to greediest companies in all of video games. It's a negative, attention-grabbing headline, but it's true. Holistically true. And you best believe I'll be offsetting it with some more indie spotlights in the future, so yeah, there's that. For now, links are down below to support. Please do consider Patreon, locals, or channel memberships. There's been some big life changes for me lately, which put me in a position to get back to the channel roots, which is one of the upsides, and those are a much better and more stable method of funding the channel when compared to the rickety world of Google AdSense. Also, the video sponsor, a link to God of Weapons on Steam. It's a fantastic little game, and I guess actually if they're going to be charged per download, I mean, it's still worth it for them to get that. I mean, it's a great game. It deserves your time. I highly recommend it. And more like a cybersecurity product affiliate list. That's a side project of mine, but whatever. I'll cut it there and stop rambling. Oh, the YouTube sponsor as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. Surfshark. Big thank you to them for sponsoring the channel. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.